The year is 1998. For a few months now, you've been watching this strange cartoon about these creatures called Pokemon. You've probably collected some cards relating to them. Then, you see a commercial. It involves Pikachu riding a bus with a bunch of Pokemon on it. And then the bus driver squishes them into a little box that becomes a Game Boy. Wow, the 90s were weird. Or maybe instead of that, you see a significantly less weird commercial where Pikachu hops out of the Game Boy, throws a link cable, and then walks across it like a tightrope. Yeah, okay, still weird. Wow, people who made 90s Pokemon commercials were insane. Anyway, so you see this strange advertisement, and suddenly, you know that Pokemon is now a video game for the Game Boy. So you immediately run to your mom and beg, "Mommy, please, 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 please get me the Pokemon's game!" And then, you have it. The original generation of Pokemon. I've only played for challenge runs, but most of you have many fond memories of. But since I don't have any rose-tinted nostalgia glasses, I can look at these games as they are. It's time for a deep dive retrospective into the world of Red and Blue, to dissect them, and in 11,000 words, ask, are these games actually good? This is gonna be a long one, as you can tell from the 11,000 words comment and also the length of this video. So buckle in, grab a snack, and let's do this. The game opens with a short animation that's painfully simplistic now, but still does a good job at getting people into the game. There's a reason so many movies start with fight scenes. Before you ever press a single button on the controller, you've already seen a short battle and a bunch of Pokemon, if you sit on the title screen long enough. Once you actually press a button, you're greeted by Professor Oak welcoming you to the world of Pokemon. While it's at the point now that we expect to see the professor of each region at the start, that was a nice touch back in 96. Also, quick side note, Oak refers to himself as the prof, not the professor, which was probably either a text limit or a translation error, but I still find it really funny. After Oak gives a short speech about what Pokemon are and does a nice job at cleanly explaining to people what's going on, you get to pick your name. Hey, people who are actually alive in 96, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at this point you usually had to use the canon protagonist's name, so the fact that they let you pick your own name is cool, and that really adds to the sense of immersion. Once you name yourself, he introduces your rival, and even though the joke is pretty overused now, I still find, this is my grandson. What was his name again? Really funny. Oak tells you that your world of dreams and adventure is about to unfold, and that single line does such a good job at getting at just this whole world. This game is a fun, fantastical story where basically anything is possible, and it really is a journey of dreams and adventure. You're sent down into the world, and something I just noticed is that you're sitting in front of a TV when you start the game. It's very possible that you were in-universe diegetically watching this speech from Professor Oak, sort of in the same way as how in the first episode of the anime, Ash was watching a battle because he couldn't sleep, and then he switched to watching a speech from Professor Oak about the 3 starter Pokemon. Once you're in the world, there's obviously not much to do in this room, but there's a PC on your desk. If you're particularly curious, or you've played the game before, or you have a friend who also likes the game and told you about it, you can interact with the PC and have the reward of a free potion. Little details like that are what make this game go from good to great. You head out of your house without saying goodbye to your mom, and unlike in later games, there is no direction whatsoever. You probably go into the tall grass, because this is an adventure, so the only thing it makes sense to do is set out on your journey. But right as you set foot in the wild, Professor Oak stops you and tells you that it's dangerous to go alone. You get led into Oak's lab, where Blue is already waiting impatiently. Oak explains to the two of you that there are 3 Pokemon on his desk, and... okay, yes, I'm gonna talk about this single line. Oak has a line in this scene where he says, there are 3 Pokemon here, laughs at something, and then says that the Pokemon are inside the Pokeballs. I have never liked that line. Everyone, both in and out of universe, knows what Pokeballs are. The anime was already airing by the time these games hit the States, so most Americans would know about the games because of that. By extension, they would also know what Pokeballs are. In Japan, I'm less sure, obviously, but anyone who'd been convinced to buy the game from the ads probably also knew what Pokeballs were. And then in-universe, they freaking televise Pokemon battles. There is no way Red and Blue wouldn't know what Pokeballs are. It took me years to figure out this line was supposed to be saying, "Oak, these are Pokemon." Red, I think he's crazy. Oak, the Pokemon are inside the Pokeballs, I'm not insane. Because that doesn't make any sense! Plus 15 cents. Once Oak finishes with that weird, nonsense line, he lets you pick your starter Pokemon. Blue then picks the starter with the type advantage over yours. Now, based on his dialogue, I can't tell if that's him picking it just because it looks strong, or because he knows it has the type advantage, but I like to think it's the latter. That just fits his character more, so I'm gonna count it as a win. As soon as you both have your starters, Blue challenges you to a battle, at which point you get your first taste of what the battle system is like. Of course, it's a really simple battle, it's just 2 level 5 Pokemon going at each other, but it does a good job of introducing the battle system without any hand-holding. After the fight, Blue gives a line about how he picked the wrong Pokemon, and then he says that he'll fight to make his Pokemon stronger. Those 2 lines together, coupled with the impatience of his introduction and the sassy "smell ya later" catchphrase at the end of the scene, do a really good job at showing his characterization early. This kid is smug, sassy, and self-confident, and he cares more about winning than just about anything else. After Blue leaves, you can head north and journey through many Technicolor titled towns, starting with Viridian City. I'm not kidding about the Technicolor thing, by the way. All but 2 of the towns in this game are named after colors, which in a game divided into red, blue, green, and yellow is a nice touch. When you get to Viridian, depending on what type of person you are, you will A. Continue heading north only to be stopped by an old drunk guy, B. Walk around until you've seen everything there is to see in this area, or C. Just head straight for the Pokemart. No matter which way you do it though, you will eventually end up in the Pokemart purely through trial and error without a drop of hand-holding. I will be honest, I feel like this game would be improved by having at least a bit of hand-holding there, because this town is complicated enough you could easily spend a while just wandering around if you don't think to go to the landmarks. Even something as simple as Nurse Joy saying, "Oh, are you from Palatown? There's something for you in the Pokemart, you know," would be sufficient. Not railroading you by any means, just giving you a gentle nudge in the right direction. Regardless, once you get to the Pokemart, the person behind the counter will tell you to deliver Professor Oak a package. You get the package to him, and he says that it's a custom Pokeball he had ordered. What's so custom about it is never explained, and I can't tell if this is lore or plot hole. I'm leaning toward plot hole because you can buy literally an infinite number of these things one town over. I'm counting it as a sin. After that, Blue shows up, and Oak tells the 2 of you about this device he made, the Pokedex, a device which makes no sense whatsoever. Canonically, the Pokedex is incomplete until you, the 10-year-old, fills in the information inside of it, even though this is your first time seeing most of these creatures. Because that makes sense. It would be one thing if the device worked the way it does in Legends Arceus, that is, you get the Pokemon, send it back to the professor, and then he writes the entries, but that's not how it works. Or, based on Oak's dialogue, the Dex might be writing entries on its own. What? That makes even less sense. Am I supposed to believe that this thing, with less processing power than my smartphone, is capable of writing complex descriptions of all these Pokemon that are then taken at face value? Oh my Helix, that is so dumb. I made a video one time where I tried to get a machine to synthesize text that I could use as a script. And then it was played as comedy, because that script didn't make any sense. And then people take this thing at face value. I wouldn't give sins to other games for this, but this game is the one that set the formula for the others to follow, and that's an easy plus 10 sins. Once you get the Pokedex, Blue proceeds to call you useless and explain his evil plan of how he'll ask his sister for a town map, but then tell her not to give one to you. Again, that is some damn good characterization already. You go back to Viridian City, and the way north is now open, but that's far from the only thing you do. First of all, you can check the gym and find out that it's locked, it's always locked, and the identity of the leader is unknown. That's not super interesting, but it's good foreshadowing. You have no idea how long it'll be until the gym is open, but you know you'll need to come back here at some point. This is the first of a few Chekhov's guns that are set up in this game. You can also head west, in which case you'll be stopped by Blue, who asks if you're going to the Pokemon League, then says you won't be able to get in because you don't have badges. He's also coming from the League, and that implies to me that he went to the League and got locked out. There's more of that standard cockiness that we love from him. I'll be honest, I like this fight here. It's not the most interesting battle or anything, but it works from a meta perspective. At this point in the game, the battle with him in Oak's lab is the only trainer battle you've had. His Pokemon are just stronger than yours, so while this fight is optional, that gives you the incentive to get stronger and come back to beat him. He gloats, he's sassy, and you're almost strong enough to win, so those things combine to give you a burning desire to beat him, matched only by one other fight in the game. Whether or not you do this battle, you then head north. While the old man doesn't force you into a catching tutorial, you can talk to him, and if you do, you'll then have the option to be taught how to catch a Pokemon. That's a good way of handling it. If you've played before or you've seen someone playing, then you don't need to be taught, but first-time players can seek it out if they want. Then, it's time for Viridian Forest. This place has a ton of cool Pokemon you might want to catch, and they evolve pretty quickly to show you how evolution works. As a bonus, Butterfree also gets Confusion, so you have a good counter to Brock if you're playing Yellow or you pick Charmander. Also, you can get Pikachu here if you're dedicated enough, and while it is kinda overrated thanks to being the mascot, I like Pikachu. What do you want? It's cute! But my favorite thing about this place is the route of no encounters. I have no idea if it was intentional or not, but I'm choosing to believe it is. There's a specific path you can go along in Viridian Forest that guarantees you get through the area with no encounters. There is literally no way to know on a first playthrough, but if you spend enough time screwing around in here, then eventually you'll realize that you can go a lot faster if you go the specific path that doesn't have encounters. It's just one of those things like the potion in the box that new players wouldn't know, and it's just there for experienced players to realize. Plus 5 wins. After making your way through Viridian Forest, you get to Pewter City. There's not a ton to do here. You can go to the museum if you want, but the main attraction is the gym. That's such a main attraction that if you try to skip it, a kid will stop you and be like, "Yo, have you met Brock? Come on, I'll show you. Come find Brock." Which is a nice way of making sure that you go to the first gym first. It's not like a block or anything, it's just a kid who wants to help you out and be nice. It's fun and the sort of thing that kids do. Regardless of what else you do first, you go into the gym. When you go inside the gym, the only non-Brock trainer in there says, "You're light years away from beating Brock," and then yells himself because light years are a unit of distance, not time. That's such a nice little quote because that's exactly the sort of thing a kid at that age would say. After you beat that kid, you get to Brock. Quick note on the name Brock, by the way. In Japanese, all the gym leader names are puns based on flowers, but Japanese and English work very differently, and they couldn't keep that up when they localized. But Brock, specifically, is still a pun. His name is a flower, but it's a flower that sounds one heck of a lot like the type he specializes in, rock. That's an 8 plus 3 wins. His fight isn't particularly interesting, but there are a couple things I want to point out. 1. He doesn't actually have any rock moves. Bad. 2. There are several ways to beat Brock. If you picked Bulbasaur or Squirtle, you can use your starter. If you pick Charmander, then his Pokemon have bad enough special that you can probably still KO with Ember. But you can also use Confusion on a Butterfree. In Yellow, you can also get Mankey. All this to say, plus 5 wins. You beat Brock, and you get the TM for Bide, which is not a rock move. 'Cause reasons. Then you can progress to the next route. Aside from the memorable dialogue, there's a particular trainer I want to point out. The girl north of this youngster here. You think you can dodge. You're ready to dodge this fight. You head just north of the kid, and bam! You're blindsided by a louse who wants to both fight and block your way. So now, you have to fight not only her, but also the kid you were trying to skip. It's beautifully annoying to people who don't know how to avoid her. You fought all these trainers. Your Pokemon are probably pretty beaten down. All you want is a Pokemon Center. And at the end of this route, that's exactly what you get. A Pokemon Center, right before heading into the first cave of the game, Mount Moon. Mount Moon is full of trainers, but if you know what you're doing, you don't actually need to fight most of them. 90% of the trainers in this area are completely avoidable if you know the layout of the cave. But they're mostly rock types, and if you pick Bulbasaur or Squirtle, your Pokemon are probably underleveled, so you should fight the trainers to level your Pokemon up a bit. There's easy access to plenty of Moonstones, so if you got a Nidoran back in Viridian City, you can already have a fully evolved Pokemon. Yet another neat trick for experienced or curious players. As you progress through the cave, you'll come across the first appearance of the villainous Team Rocket! But, like everyone else, they're skippable if you know what you're doing. Right near the end of the cave, however, there's one Rocket Grunt that you will need to fight, and his dialogue gives you a few hints. He says the Team Rocket will steal the fossils, revive them, and sell them for profit. That right there says 3 things. Rockets are thieves, fossils can be revived, and Team Rocket will do anything for quick buck. After you defeat the Lion Tamer wannabe, and I'm serious about that, like half the trainers in this game hold whips, it's weird, you progress to the Fossil Maniac. He challenges you to a battle, you defeat him easily, and then you get to pick a fossil. Now clear your mind of any Dome versus Helix memes for a second, and just imagine what this is like for a kid. You know because of the Rocket Grunt that these fossils can be revived, but you're not sure what they revive into. You don't know what a Dome fossil or a Helix fossil is, you probably don't even know what the word Helix means. You might have been to the Pewter Museum, in which case you would know a bit about the fossils from there, but otherwise, these things are completely new to you. You pick one of the 2 fossils, setting up another Chekhov's gun, this one being one that won't be fired until the 7th gem. This game is really good at foreshadowing. You get out of the cave, and when you do, you cross the Cliff of No Return, which then leads you to Cerulean City. When you're here, there are 2 major things to do, both of which you will have to do eventually. Challenge the gym, or head north to Nugget Bridge, where you face Blue once more. We're gonna treat it like you challenged Blue first. There's not really much to say about this battle. It's a battle. Against Blue. He has a slightly stronger team than last time, but it still has a completely useless Abra and a barely useful Rattata. North of him, Nugget Bridge is obviously pretty easy, but the twist at the end of fighting a Rocket Grunt in addition to the 5 other trainers is neat, I guess. I'm also pretty sure Nugget Bridge was designed as a mini Elite Four where you can't heal between battles, because when I played it that way, it was suddenly a lot harder. When you're done with Nugget Bridge, you visit Bill. I honestly find Bill's gimmick of how he turned himself into a Pokemon pretty funny, but there is one problem with it. Why didn't Blue say anything about it? He's the one who told us to visit Bill. Are we supposed to believe that Blue just didn't bother to say something like, "Ha! Bill turned himself into a Pokemon, the fool"? Or are we instead supposed to think that in the 10 minutes since Blue left, Bill managed to turn himself into a Pokemon? Neither of those options make any sense. Plus 5 sins. Also, not sure where to slot this in, but Bill gives you the ticket for the SSN, which you will need later on. If you visit Bill's house before beating Misty, the game opens up and lets you go all the way to the SSN before ever making you fight her. That's cool. Unfortunately, you still need her badge to use Cut, which means you can't go past the SSN before beating her, but you can at least go that far. Vermilion City is home to 2 important people. The Fishing Guru and the Pokemon Fan Club Chairman. The Fishing Guru gives you the Old Rod, and the Fan Club Chairman gives you the Bike Voucher. While neither of those items are necessary to beat the game, the Bicycle lets you go significantly faster than walking, and the Old Rod gives you access to Magikarp and later Gyarados, so your life will be a lot easier if you use them. Whether or not you get these items, whether or not you even leave Cerulean City, you will eventually have to beat Misty, so let's go ahead and do that. Unlike Brock, there's really not very much to say about her. If you didn't pick Bulbasaur and you didn't grab a Pikachu in Viridian Forest, you won't have any super effective moves, so that's a drag, but otherwise it's nothing much. When you're done with Misty, it's time for the SSN. The guard asks for your ticket, so you flash your ticket? Dear Helix Red, you're 10! All joking aside though, that really is a weird translation. I hesitate to call it a translation error, because the exact same quirk also appears in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but it's funny. The SSN has a ton of trainers, none of them are particularly interesting, but there are a few things I want to point out. Game Boy space was incredibly limited, and yet they still went to the effort to make you able to go onto the bow, into the kitchen, and in every single room in this thing. There's no reason to do that, and yet they did. And that right there is worth 5 wins. When you're done exploring the ship, you can head to the captain's quarters, where you get stopped by Blue. His fight isn't very interesting, but his dialogue is. Up to this point in the game, almost all of his dialogue has just been cocky, sassy Blue. This is different. He's still sassy and arrogant, but rather than pure, uncaring sass in line with Sonic the Hedgehog, we now see another side of him. He cares about the Pokedex, and by extension, his grandfather. Several of his lines in this scene are about trying to work on the Pokedex, which is something Professor Oak asked him to do. If he was just a sassy kid who couldn't care less about what his grandpa wants from him, why would he put so much effort into completing the Dex? This is showing a more human side to him, and three-dimensional characters are always worth at least a few, let's say 10, wins. So, plus 10 wins. Also, after the fight, he makes a sassy comment about the captain just being a seasick old man. Then he gives you a tip about checking in on him to get cut. That shows for all his talk about being the best, he still wants his rival to be strong. Man, Blue is such a good character, you guys. Once you're done with Blue, you go to the captain's quarters, rub the captain's back, okay then, and get the HM for cut in return, allowing you to clear the way to the Vermilion City gym. The puzzle in this gym is really boring. The switches to the doors are under trash cans, and which ones they're under is completely random, and also changes anytime you mess up finding the second one. Also, thanks to a glitch, there's always a chance for the second one to randomly be in the top left corner of the map. That's annoying. Once you get to Surge himself, the fight is boring. You've already been forced to get the dig TM at this point, and that's basically an instant win button. Surge is a really fun character for his personality, but his battle, not so much. The most interesting thing about this gym is honestly the fact that Surge is known as the Lightning American, which means that America exists in the Pokemon world, even though Unova does as well. I can't make this a sin because when Red and Blue were made, the idea of getting 2 games in the series, let alone 5, was absurd. I just find the lore inconsistencies funny. You progress through a rock tunnel, which requires Flash to navigate. Flash, a move that is used literally nowhere else in the entire game. And you have to go out of your way, backtracking to the Viridian Forest Gate to get it. And it has a Pokedex requirement. Jeez, that was dumb. Flash is also an HM in this game, so you can't get rid of whatever Pokemon you put it on either. Then, finally, you get out of the cave, and you're on to the subject of every Pokemon fan's nightmares, Lavender Town. I can't decide if I love Lavender Town with all my heart and soul, or I hate it with a burning passion. On the one hand, it's a source for tons upon tons of theories and creepypastas. It's so well made that people are still scared of it to this day, and it really knows how to have a creepy aesthetic. On the other hand, it's terrifying. It's really cool, but there's not much to do in Lavender Town, so you naturally head up to the giant-ass tower in town, and also the only landmark in the entire area, the Pokemon Tower. When you get there, you see Blue, who has some pretty interesting dialogue. Your Pokemon don't look dead. I can at least make them faint. Are your Pokemon dead, Blue? How's Eradicate doing? Hey, I took it easy on you, stinker! Blue is continuing to be sassy and refusing to accept defeat, a trait he will eventually outgrow. I found a Cubone, but I can't find a Marowak. Not important for characterization, but a nice hint to the player. You've seen a few Cubone in Rock Tunnel, but you haven't been able to catch any yet. This is a nice tip about the fact that you can find them here. I doubt there are any left. This line is just a nice bit of foreshadowing for the fact that Team Rocket steals, and also kills, hot damn, Pokemon as they did to the Marowak. You defeat Blue's stronger team, and then you make your way up the tower. This place is cool as heck. The music adds to the ambiance. The ghosts can't be identified, meaning you can't attack them, which is great for the spook factor. The trainers all act like they're possessed by the ghosts they wield, which also adds to the spook. This place is great. But let's talk about those trainers for a sec, because they're awesome. Most of them have dialogue that just boils down to random nonsense noises, but a couple of them have interesting dialogue. The first is one who says, "Be cursed with me!" which shows that she at least has some level of control, at least enough to say that, which is more than the others. Though if it's actually her talking, We're not sure. The second is much less important. She just yells, "Zombies!" and challenges you to a fight, which is not a lore detail, it's just funny, so I wanted to point it out. Also, one other channeler is interesting. Right at the start of the tower, there's one who doesn't seem to be possessed, and she says, "Even we couldn't identify the ghosts. A self-scope might be able to unmask them." This implies two things: that the channelers are channeling spirits they aren't aware of, and that they're wielding, or really being wielded by, Pokemon they can't see. But in addition to those, it also gives a slight hint to the players. The self-scope, wherever it is, might be what you need in order to progress. Speaking of progressing, you go through the tower, and when you get to the top, you get stopped by a voice that says, "Be gone, intruders." And then you get challenged to a fight by a mysterious ghost. Your Pokemon are too scared to fight, and the ghost can't be caught, so all you can do is run. The ghost won't fight you either. All it'll do is say, "Get out! Get out!" This is a really cool way of halting your progression, because it makes sense in-universe. When you leave the tower, you can head south, but your path will be blocked by a Snorlax. However, there is one really sad thing I want to point out as well. In the gate between Lavender Town and the new route, there's a girl in the upper section. When you talk to her, she says, "My Pokemon's ashes are in the Pokemon Tower. You can have this TM. I don't need it anymore." That's really sad all on its own, but it's not over yet. In this game, she's just giving you the TM for Swift. In the remakes, she gives you the TM for Return, the move that gets stronger the happier your Pokemon is. Why? This is the only thing that you can do going south, so the only remaining direction for you to go is west. West leads you to a fairly uninteresting route. That's kind of a theme in this game. There weren't very many interesting routes yet, but there is one thing at the end I want to point out. The gate to Saffron is still closed. Now at this point, we don't know that it's Saffron yet. We just know that it's a town in the center of the map that every gate to has been closed. While your in-game time is probably only about 10 hours at this point, diegetically, you've been on this journey for about a week. That's not normal. Road closures don't last that long, and they don't happen on every single way to the town you're going to. If you're paying enough attention, you can tell that something is amiss in Saffron City. Also, this guard gives a small hint by saying that he's thirsty before saying that the road is closed. That's a hint for eagle-eyed players who can pick up on that and think to bribe him. All in all, this is plus 10 wins. Regardless on if you pick up on that hint or not, you go through the underground passageway into Celadon City. Why are there so many underground passages all around this region? No one knows. Celadon City has a lot of stuff you could do, but not much that matters. Of the stuff that does matter, you can get the gift Eevee and meet someone who can break the fourth wall, go to the department store and get some nifty items, including 3 excellent TMs if you're kind to a little girl, go to the grass gym for another badge, or go to the Rocket Game Corner to advance the plot. The Eevee and department store don't have much to them, so I'm going to start with the gym. The most interesting thing about this gym is the creep outside who says, "This gym is great, it's full of women." That was a choice. Inside the gym you have a bunch of girls who will fight you, and then Erica, a gym leader who can be really annoying if you're unlucky enough. She has a combination of sleep powder, poison powder, and wrap, so she can chip damage you, stun lock you with sleep and Gen 1 wrap, and just all around be a pain to battle. I'm doing my best to never be over leveled in this playthrough, so even my strongest super effective hits could never OHKO, and then she would come in, stun lock me, and demolish my whole team. This fight is not by any means difficult, but it is very annoying, so I have to count it as a sin. Quick note, I will be going through this under the assumption that you go Erica, Sabrina, Koga, Blaine. Now you can do those 4 in any order, and that technically you're supposed to fight Koga then Sabrina, but that doesn't make any sense. If that upsets you, why? Once you're done with that, you head into the Rocket Game Corner. Rocket Game Corner. Like Team Rocket, Wow, people in this universe are idiots. The slot machines themselves and the prizes you can get are interesting, but the Pokemon and TMs aren't fantastic, and we know that's not why you're actually here. The point of this game corner is to talk to the rocket grunt in the back to progress the plot. Once you defeat that painfully easy guard, you flip the switch that's behind the poster, and you can now access the Team Rocket Hideout. The hideout is, like everything else in this game, neat, but not super interesting. The only two noteworthy parts of this area before meeting Giovanni himself are the spinny tiles and the lift key. The spinny tiles are, as the name implies, tiles that make you spin. Specifically, they force you to move in the direction that they're facing until you hit one of these things to stop it. These are the central puzzle of the area, and while they're not particularly interesting, they are pretty impressive given the technical limitations these devs were working with, so I'm counting them as a win. Then the lift key is the item you need in order to face Giovanni. And how do you get it? Battle a random rocket grunt who says, "Oh, I wonder who has the lift key." Then, when you beat him, he does nothing. After that, you can talk to him, in which case he'll yell, "Oh no, I dropped the lift key!" And after that, you can get the key and progress to the Mafia boss himself, Giovanni. That's so dumb. And Giovanni is significantly more interesting than I actually realized. Before the fight, he acknowledges your skill and says he's impressed you got to him. That shows he at least has a bit of self-awareness, because he was able to see that a 10-year-old getting through his whole facility is pretty impressive. After the fight, he recognizes that you raise your Pokemon with care, which implies that he knows what cared-for Pokemon look like. Maybe he even realizes that his own Pokemon don't look like that. Though the rest of his lines are just generic, "Bah! A child could never understand me!" villainy, so maybe he's not as nuanced as he could be. After the fight, he drops the Self Scope, and you pick it up. Why does he drop the Self Scope? I don't know, maybe he was in a hurry to escape or something. At this point, you can use the drink from the roof of the Celadon department store to bribe the guards into letting you pass. I'm serious, that's genuinely what's happening here. The guard cares so little about his job that a bottle of water is enough to make him open the road. Wow, there is some serious corruption here. You get into Saffron City, and there's not much to do here yet, but that's very intentional. Currently, all you can do is challenge the fighting dojo, heal your Pokemon at the Poke Center, and buy items at the Pokemart. Why can't you do anything else? Because Team Rocket has it under control. Instead of normal citizens, rocket grunts are walking around like they own the place. And I mean that literally. Several of them have lines like, "Saffron belongs to Team Rocket!" and such. You can't progress the personal plot by going into the gym, nor can you progress the actual plot by going into Self-Co. The only thing you can do is go to the fighting dojo, so we're gonna do that. Practically, the dojo is worthless. It doesn't progress the plot at all, and the only reward for it is one of two Pokemon that are mediocre at best, and the trainers aren't very interesting. From a lore standpoint, however, it's very, very interesting. There was one image of Gary having 10 badges, and we know that in Gen 8 there are major and minor league gyms, but this is one of the only instances of a gym other than one of the main 8. It doesn't give you a badge, and the layout isn't very interesting, but it is very clearly decorated to look like a standard gym. This is the only instance in the whole series of a gym that doesn't give you a badge. I have no idea why it doesn't give you a badge, but it doesn't. Even though we could really use an explanation, this lore bit is still worth 10 wins. Eventually, after seeing there's basically nothing to do in Saffron, you go back to the Pokemon Tower, now able to see ghosts with the Self Scope. When you get back to the top of the tower, you find that the ghost blocking your way was a Marowak. Interesting that you can't catch it, but why? It was the spirit of Cubone's dead mother. Wait, Cubone? What Cubone? When has the Cubone ever been important to the plot? Wait, hang on. Team Rocket? What are you doing here? Old guy? What old guy? Mr. Fuji? Who the heck are you? What's going on? What you just saw there was a reenactment of how I was feeling the first time I played this game. The game assumes you have at least a base level knowledge that can only be obtained by going out of your way to talk to optional NPCs. I did not. I play enough video games to know that giant landmark equals objective, so I went directly to the Pokemon Tower. Then the game started acting like I had all this background knowledge about Cubone, Marowak, and Mr. Fuji, characters that I had never heard of. The game gives you basically no information without you specifically looking for it, and then shows you a major plot beat without any background information to make it make sense. No plot should be told primarily by going out of your way to talk to optional NPCs. This is like plus 20 sins. Now that you've gone through the Lavender Town plot, the door to Sofco is open. Why? Because the guard is taking a nap. I'm serious. That's honestly why. I find that so funny. Now that you go through the incredibly difficult, unless you've done this before, maze that is Sofco, and eventually meet up with Blue once more. Brief side tangent. I'm not kidding about the unless you've done this before thing. If you don't care about the items, there's an incredibly simple route that involves one trainer and 2 warp panels to get to the card key and get to Blue. If you don't know that route, the puzzle is infuriating, because warp panels are a sin that should never have been created. Getting back on topic, Blue's battle is for once more interesting than his dialogue. His only interesting line is, "I guess Team Rocket kept you, not that I care," showing how little he cares for people other than himself and his grandpa. His battle, however, is insane. The previous battle with him, and quite possibly your most recent major battle, had his highest level at 25. If that wasn't your most recent battle, then the first Giovanni battle probably was. Giovanni's Pokemon cap out at 29. Blue's lowest level is 35. That's insane. And it doesn't help that he now has an Alakazam, and in most teams, a Gyarados. After you somehow beat him, he says that you're ready for Boss Rocket. I have no idea why he refers to Giovanni as Boss Rocket, but he does. It's weird. But he's right, it's time for us to fight Giovanni now. Well, almost. There's this guy with a Lapras who gives it to you as thanks for saving him, so that's nice. Now, it's time for Giovanni. Giovanni starts the fight with a few lines that aren't very interesting, except for one at the start. He calls you by name. How the heck does he know your name? It's never explained, and like a lot of stuff, I can't tell if it's a plot hole or an interesting lore detail, but I'm leaning toward plot hole, so this is a sin. Since the last fight, his team has gotten a lot stronger, which doesn't make sense why he is not already at full power, but I can't fault the game for that. This is how game balancing works, and if he had the ideal team he probably should, the game would be impossible. After you do that, he and all of Team Rocket disappears. Now you can talk to the president of Sofco. If you do, he basically says, "Thanks for saving us. I'm rich. Have the best Pokeball ever." And then he gives you the Master Ball. Now Saffron is really opened up, and there are a lot of things you can do, including the gym, but before the gym, there's just this one character I want to point out. Copycat. Copycat is a girl in the north of the town who's more than a little antisocial, collects Pokemon plushies, and mimics everything you say. If you look at her computer, you'll see that her favorite Pokemon is Clefairy. If you connect the dots, you'll realize that you should go buy her a Pokédoll from the Celadon department store. If you bring her said Pokédoll, she'll give you the TM for Mimic in exchange. Why does that matter? Play the Gen 2 games. Once you get done with that, it's time for Sabrina's gym. This gym's the worst. To avoid ranting about it too much, I'll keep this short. The gym is full of warp tiles with no pattern to them whatsoever that can easily have you wandering around the gym for a decade and a half. The only way to get it cleanly is to memorize the trail, or do what I always do, and look up a map. This gym sucks, plus 10 sins. Then we get to Sabrina herself, and the fight is interesting. She starts the fight by saying that she doesn't like battling, but she will if she must. Little weird for someone whose job it is to be a professional battler to not like battling, but okay. The battle itself is either really easy or really hard, with no in-between. She has 3 powerful Pokemon and also Venomoth. The Venomoth will always be easy. The other 3 are easy if you know how to exploit their weaknesses. And by that, I don't mean bug types. I mean physical types. All 3 of her psychic types have really good special, but really bad physical stats. So in other words, if you bring in a Snorlax, an Arcanine, or any other decent physical attacker, this battle is a piece of cake. Moving on. There are 2 ways to do so, but no matter which one you take, it's time to get to Fuschia City. You can go down via Cycling Road, which is way easier, or you can go the way south of Lavender Town, which is for masochists. Either way, you get to Fuschia City, but there are 2 important things to do. Go to the Safari Zone, and go to the gym. We're going to start with the Safari Zone, though you will eventually have to do both. The Safari Zone is interesting, I hate the mechanics, I'm not going to go into them here. Plus 4 sins, 1 for the fact that you can't battle, 1 for the limit of steps, 1 for the fact that you have to use Safari Balls, and 1 for how many strong Pokemon can only be found here. In addition to that, there are 2 things here you need in order to progress. The Warden's Teeth, and the HM for Surf. While you wouldn't know to look for the Warden's Teeth without talking to him, I'm not going to count that as a sin, because they're right on the path you have to go to get Surf, so they're hard to miss. Once you get the Warden's Teeth, you can talk to the Warden, and he'll give you the HM for Strength in return. Now that you have the HMs for Surf and Strength, there's only one thing left to do. Fight Koga. But first you have to fight his gym trainers, who are all jugglers, and use exclusively psychic types. Why? Weird choices for gym trainers aside, Koga is cool, and no, I'm not just saying that because he's a ninja. But that is totally a factor. Ninjas are sick. Seriously though, his team is pretty well designed. I kinda wish he didn't have repeats, but otherwise, his team is just cool. 4 strong poison types who will dodge your attacks while chipping away at you with poison. While I normally don't like stall strategies, the fact that it's an evasion stall and he's a ninja is cool. So that's a win. Now it's time for you to go to Cinnabar Island, but there are a couple of ways to get there. It being an island and all means that you have to get to it using Surf, but you can leave for it either from Fuschia City or from Peloton. The Fuschia route is more complicated, but it also gives you access to the Seafoam Islands, which is where you capture Articuno. On the other hand, the route from Pallet is significantly simpler, so that's the way I always go. When you get to Cinnabar Island, there's really not much to do. The gym is locked, so there are only 2 major attractions, the Pokemon Lab and the Pokemon Mansion. The lab isn't important to the plot, but if you go to it, then you can get your fossil revived, finally firing the Chekhov's gun that was set in place all the way back in Mount Moon. The mansion, however, is where all the action is. The Pokemon Mansion is awesome. This is my favorite place in all of Pokemon. The music adds to the creepy and mysterious ambiance. The strange puzzles give you an overwhelming sense that there's something far greater than you understand here. The journals and the decrepit mansion are incredible environmental storytelling. It all comes together to tell one excellent story. As you work your way through the mansion and read all these creepy and mysterious diary entries, the story of what happened becomes clear. In Guyana, South America, a Pokemon was discovered. This Pokemon is known as Mew. It was taken back to the lab, and 7 months later it, gave birth. Interesting choice of words, translators? Anyway, the new Pokemon that came from Mew was named Mewtwo. 7 more months go by, and Mewtwo is out of control. They can't contain its vicious tendencies any longer. This is where the journals end, so it's safe to assume they were destroyed by it. This is so cool, plus 10 wins. After you get done experiencing the sick environmental storytelling, you get the secret key to get into the fire gym. Why the gym was locked to begin with is unclear, but okay then. The gym itself is pretty cool. It has a neat mechanic that if you interact with the quiz machines and you get the questions right, you get to go forward. But if you get them wrong, you have to fight a trainer. That's just a nice way of making it so knowledgeable players, the ones who probably wouldn't have a hard time with the trainers, are the ones who get to skip them. Once you get to the end of the gym, you meet Blaine, the eccentric fire gym leader. He says the funny thing, and then it's battle time. His team isn't very interesting, just 2 strong fire types in their pre-evolutions, but his AI is really weird. I know it's a meme to say this, but Blaine uses super potions on full health Pokemon! Hey, people who understand how Gen 1 AI works, would you mind explaining to me what the deal is with his AI using potions at full health? There's clearly something weird about that, and I don't know what it is. Also, this is the 7th gem, why is he still even using super potions anyway? So, now that you've beaten all 7 gems, you've explored pretty much everything on the map. What's even left? You know what's left. You've known what's left since the moment you set foot on your journey. The gym that's been taunting you this whole time. It's time for the Viridian City gym. Okay, I'm gonna take a pause from the video for a second. If you've made it this far into this ungodly long video, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been so much work to make. Those of you who've been around my channel for a while will know that I basically never do calls to action because I find them really tacky. Today, I'm breaking that rule. If you've made it this far into the video, please subscribe. It's free, and you clearly enjoy my content enough to stick around. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, comment, all that YouTuber stuff. I don't like asking for much from you, but this video was so much work that I'll be really sad if it underperforms. So whatever you do, find some way to get the algorithm to like this video. Commenting, sharing, and just putting it on in the background to give me more watch time are the best things you can do. So please. Anyway, I've rambled long enough, back to Pokemon. The final gym is now open, but there's clearly something different about it. The sign, which normally says who the gym leader is and gives a quip about them, merely says, Viridian City Pokemon Gym. The gym guy is still in there, but he has a very interesting line. He says that even he doesn't know who the gym leader is. A gym leader he should see pretty frequently. That immediately sets up a huge sense of mystery. As you progress through the gym, you're going on all these spinning tiles, and it almost feels more like the Rocket Hideout than anything else. You're pretty on edge now. Then, after all this mystique, all this build-up, you turn the corner, and Giovanni, the Mafia boss you've been fighting this whole time. How dare he? How could he possibly be the gym leader? You're shocked, and that means the developers did their jobs right. Then, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. The gym was blocked off because he was doing crime. The gym puzzle is the same as the puzzle in his other lair, the Rocket Hideout. Giovanni did seem to favor ground types in his battles. It all comes together, and it makes you so mad. Giovanni tells you that this is his hideout, at least until he can bring Team Rocket back. This time, he's not holding back. The fight isn't great by any means, he is still a ground trainer, but Nidoking and Dugtrio are both fast and strong enough that he can probably get in at least a few hits. But how he fares isn't what matters. After you defeat him, he says that it was truly an intense fight. He seemed to honestly enjoy it. He gives you the TM for Fissure, telling you he made it when he ran the gym. He seems genuinely remorseful at the fact he stopped being a trainer. If you talk to him once more, he says he can't face his followers like this, so he disbands Team Rocket and dedicates his life to training. His arc wrapped up with a bow on the top. With 8 badges in your case and Giovanni squarely defeated, you head west to the Pokemon League. But along the way, you get stopped one last time. Blue has come to challenge you once more as a warm-up for the Pokemon League, which, of course, is exactly what we'd expect from him at this point. And Blue's team in this fight? Amazing. Still not quite all fully evolved, but it's now a full team of 6 that has great type variety, and he's only about 3 levels above Giovanni. So while he's by no means an easy win, his Pokemon don't have any kind of absurd level jump. After the fight, he says he's all loosened up, but you need more practice. Even though you just beat him. Just more of that sassy Blue. Love to see it. Now that you've done that, there's only one step left before the Pokemon League. Victory Road. This place is genius. The only HM you need is Strength, but you use it a ton as you work your way through all the various puzzles in this area. All of the Pokemon in this area are in the high 30s to low 40s. That's barely below what Blue's Pokemon were at, and that gives you a good sense of what you'll be going up against in the league, if even the wild Pokemon are strong. The only major problem with this place is that Strength moves are really slow in Gen 1, but that's barely a problem, it's just annoying. You spend ages in the cave, and when you finally get out, it's a relief. You go north, the color scheme changes to purple, and you know where you are. The Indigo Plateau, the Pokemon League. Quick note about the name Indigo Plateau. Almost every town in this game is named for a color, and the league is no exception. In fact, it's the perfect name for this area. Indigo is a purplish color, and purple is what you get when you mix red and blue, the two colors this game is divided into. That's really clever, plus 5 wins. Cool name aside, let's talk about what it's actually time for. Battles. First up, the Ice Trainer, Lorelei. Well, technically ice. Her room looks watery, all but one of her Pokemon are water type. One of her Pokemon's not even ice type. Really, she's just a water trainer with extra steps. At the start of the fight, she says, "Your Pokemon will be at my mercy when they are frozen solid!" Which is actually true because of how Gen 1 freeze works. In this game, once you get frozen, you can't thaw out naturally. The only way to unfreeze yourself is to either use an item or have the opponent use a fire move on you, so you're MIA as soon as you get frozen. But dialogue aside, let's get to what really matters. Her team. First is her Dewgong, which is bulky and can heal itself with rest, so overall it's pretty good, unless you just one-shot it with Thunderbolt or something. Next out is Cloyster, which on the physical side is way bulkier, but it doesn't have the special bulk to not just also get killed by Thunderbolt. Third is Slowbro, and it can actually get pretty scary. Let it set up enough amnesia, and you have a special wall that can sweep your team despite being so slow. Jynx is just a really strong Pokemon, and if you don't outspeed an Oko with a rock or fire move, she can seriously mess you up. Last is Lapras, who's bulky, can paralyze you with Body Slam, can confuse you with Confuse Ray, and is all around just a pain to deal with. But you defeat her. And next up is Fighting Trainer we don't talk about. Sorry? No. Next up is Fighting Trainer Lindsay! Nope. Next up is Fighting Trainer Bruno. Finally got it. Bruno's weird. He acts like pretty much every fighting trainer in the series, always going on and on about fitness and training and stuff. Then his team is insane. First is Onyx, which is not a fighting type, 'cause reasons. I get why it's in there, messing with flying types and everything, but he knows that most fighting types can learn rock moves, right? Next is Hitmonchan, who doesn't have any stab moves. Counter is his only fighting move, and Counter doesn't do regular damage. Other than that, he only has the inaccurate Mega Punch and the still special Elemental Punches. After that is Hitmonlee, who has the actually really good Jump Kick and High Jump Kick, in addition to the 75% accurate Mega Kick and the completely non-functional Focus Energy. What Focus Energy is supposed to do is increase your crit ratio. What it does in this game is lower your crit ratio. 'Cause reasons. Next is another Onyx, which is again, not a fighting type. Last is Machamp, who could be good, but knows Fissure, which isn't a good move. Leer, at this point in the game, Focus Energy, which again, reduces crit chance, and Submission, which is 80% accurate and does recoil. So yeah, not a good team. Next is Ghost Trainer Agatha, and she is by far the most interesting member of the Pokemon League. She says that you're the kid Oak took a liking to, and that he used to be tough and handsome, but now he just wants to use the Pokedex. She sasses him that Pokemon are for fighting, and it's battle time. Allegedly, she's a ghost trainer, but really she's a poison trainer. She only uses 3 ghost types, but all of her Pokemon are poison types. First is Gengar, which can use the truly dastardly combination of Hypnosis and Dream Eater, as well as confusing you and doing solid damage with Nightshade. Following that is Golbat, who has 2 moves to cause confusion, kinda redundant, Mist to reset stat changes, and Wing Attack to do damage. Overall, just a solid moveset. Third is Haunter, which has the exact same excellent moveset as Gengar. Haunter is also when you'll probably see her central battle mechanic, switching. She has a roughly 7% chance to randomly switch a Pokemon. I don't know why she does this, but it's interesting. Next out is Arbok, which can lower your defense with Screech and Acid, paralyze with Glare, and flinch with Bite. This would be a great combination, but Arbok isn't very strong, and a good ground or psychic move would pretty easily KO. Last is the second Gengar, and my only question is, why? She has the same moveset as the other two, except now she has Toxic, in place of Hypnosis. But she still has Dream Eater, cause that makes sense. Anyway, you beat her, moving on. You walk down a hallway, ready for what you think to be the final battle. Everything is leading up to this moment. The final member of the Elite Four, Dragon Trainer Lance. He introduces himself and says that dragons are mythical Pokemon. No, they're not, but I can't fault the game for this. At this point in the game, mythical Pokemon weren't a thing yet, so that's not a sin, it just got retconned away. Next, he says that dragons are hard to catch, but very strong. At this point in the game, unless you got your teeny back in the game corner, you haven't even seen any dragon types yet, so that does just make sense. Next, he says that dragons are virtually indestructible. Which is just true. They resist all the starter types, plus electric, so no matter what your starter was, it won't be able to deal with his Pokemon. He taunts you that it's time to lose, and now, it's battle time. He leads with Gyarados, which is not a dragon type, but really should be. It was inspired by Chinese dragons, so I can't call it a sin. Then, he has two back-to-back Dragonairs, both of which have agility to go first, Slam to hurt you, if it hits, Hyper Beam to do serious damage would keep them from moving, and Dragon Rage. A terrible move that does a fixed 40 damage no matter how high level you are. After those go down is Aerodactyl, which is not a dragon, does not look like a dragon, and does not have stat moves to make it as powerful as a dragon. Yeah, this thing's going down. Last is his pseudo-legendary Dragonite. Dragonite has agility to go first, barrier to tank your hits, slam, and Hyper Beam. This thing is insane. You may notice that I didn't call Hyper Beam a downside for Dragonite. Why? Because Dragonite is strong enough to KO with it. And if Hyper Beam KOs in Gen 1, it doesn't have a recharge turn. Give this thing a chance to set up with agility, and you've got a Hyper Beam sweep on your hands. Lance is the powerful dragon trainer he should be. Unless you have an Ice type. That quad weakness to Ice is rough, buddy. You did it. You defeated the Elite Four. You won. You are now the Pokemon League champion. Or you would be, but there's still one trainer left. Blue. He defeated the Pokemon League before you, and now he is the champion. This is awful. Your rival, the kid who's been tormenting your journey this whole time, is the Pokemon League champion? The kid who was always one step ahead of you. Oh, yeah, now it makes sense. You think about it, and he was always ahead of you. Every time you got a badge, he already had it. And as soon as you beat the Pokemon League, he already had. It makes perfect sense. And that's why it hurts even more. Blue says that he was looking forward to seeing you, and that his rival should be strong to keep him sharp. That right there is the most important part of his character. He doesn't want to win just for the sake of winning. He wants to win so that he can keep battling strong trainers. There's more to this kid than sassy kid who likes to win, and when people miss that, it does his character a huge disservice. He's the greatest trainer in the world, and now, it's battle time. I'll be honest, I don't love his champion team. Sure, the Pokemon are strong, but their movesets are awful. I feel like the developers were like, oh crap, this is the strongest team in the whole game, people aren't ready, and then just made him an idiot. Because Executor doesn't have a full moveset, Rhydon doesn't have any stab moves, Arcanine's only stab move is Ember, Arcanine and Pidgeot have Whirlwind and Roar respectively, neither of which do anything in trainer battles. I could go on. Despite that though, this fight is still epic. Intense music, huge shock value, 6 strong Pokemon, a narratively and thematically satisfying final battle. A trainer you want to beat not just because you need to progress, but because you're personally mad at them. I could go on. This fight is incredible, and just such a fantastic end to such a fantastic journey. After an intense, epic battle, you've finally defeated him, and his response is to have a temper tantrum about the fact that his reign only lasted for 10 minutes. I mean, he is a 10-year-old, what do you expect? After the fight, Professor Oak shows up, congratulates you on your win, and chastises Blue for losing because he forgot to care for his Pokemon. Oak leads you to the Hall of Fame, and your victory is recorded forever. You did it. You won. For real this time. Congratulations, League Champ. Then, you go to Cerulean Cave and capture Mewtwo in a really cool area that I'm not going to go into here, but it does a really good job at planting the seeds early on, letting you check if the cave is open, and then eventually letting you reach the cave. It's cool, plus 5 wins for things I'm not going to talk about here. So, that's that. Pokemon Red and Blue have 111 sins and 151 wins. That's amazing. The game that started it all, with 151 Pokemon, has exactly that many wins. I swear that it was not intentional, that's just how it happened. In total, this game has a ratio score of 73.5%, and based on my own enjoyment of it, I'd probably rate it about a 7.5 out of 10. I decided that before I knew the ratio would be incredibly close. Neat. This game is certainly no masterpiece, but as a game that laid the groundwork for every Pokemon game to come, I think it deserves at least some props. Now, if you've watched this far into the video, you clearly like Red and Blue, so I feel like you'd also like this video where I rewrite their plot. Have fun!